I still remember the moment as if it were seared into my soul. A moment when laughter, pointed stares and cruel words collided at my wife's family reunion. I stood amid a sea of relatives in a sprawling, sunlit backyard, the scent of freshly cut grass mixing with the bitter tang of judgment. In that charged instant, someone sneered loud enough for all to hear, "There goes the broke one." The remark hit me like a tidal wave, drowning my pride and igniting a fire deep within. I felt exposed, humiliated, and alone under the relentless scrutiny of people I had once called family. Yet, within that crushing shame, a quiet resolve began to form, a promise that I would prove my worth in ways that could silence every doubt, every cruel word, without uttering a single boast. For months following that fateful day, the memory of their mocking voices haunted me. I replayed the reunion over and over in my mind, every detail amplified, the flash of sneers, the casual dismissals, the whispers that followed me long after the event had ended. I recalled how my wife's cousins exchanged knowing glances, how even her own parents seemed to revel in my perceived inadequacy. I'd spent years toiling away at a modest job, working long hours and sacrificing weekends to keep our lives afloat. I had always believed that financial prudence and perseverance would eventually earn respect, but that day, all my years of quiet struggle were reduced to a single, scornful word: broke. In the solitude of my apartment, I began to analyze every moment, every snide remark that had cut me so deeply. I questioned if I had ever truly belonged in their world, a world of luxury, lavish parties, and effortless extravagance. I wondered if I was a fraud for trying to fit into a family that celebrated wealth above all else. Yet, as the nights grew colder and the isolation of my own thoughts became unbearable, a strange determination took root within me. I decided, silently and without fanfare, that I would rewrite the narrative they had so carelessly imposed on me. I started with small, deliberate changes in my daily routine. I woke up earlier than usual, dedicating the quiet hours before dawn to planning and budgeting. I meticulously tracked every expense, every penny saved, as though each one were a stepping stone to a future where I would no longer be mocked. I spent hours poring over financial advice, reading books on investment, and devising a strategy that was as pragmatic as it was ambitious. With each passing day, my resolve strengthened. I knew that my worth was not defined by a bank balance or the shallow opinions of others, but by my commitment to building a better future, a future where I could stand tall, unburdened by the weight of ridicule. As the months turned into a year, I began to see tangible results from my efforts. I had managed to secure a small promotion at work, and with every extra shift, I grew not just financially stronger but more confident in my abilities. I started investing wisely, slowly building a portfolio that promised steady returns. Yet, even as my financial foundation solidified, I kept my progress private. I wanted no accolades, no public declarations of victory that might feed the vanity of those who had once belittled me. My journey was a silent rebellion, a testament to the quiet power of perseverance. Then came an unexpected twist that both shook and spurred me further on my path. One crisp autumn evening, as I was finalizing a particularly promising investment, I received a call from my wife. Her voice, usually steady and composed, trembled with uncertainty as she revealed that her family was in a precarious financial position. A series of bad investments, mounting debts, and an overall mismanagement of funds had left them teetering on the edge of insolvency. I listened in stunned silence as she described the desperation creeping into her family's conversations, the whispered anxieties that permeated even the most festive gatherings. In that moment, a surge of conflicting emotions roiled within me. On one hand, I recalled the humiliating laughter and the dismissive looks that had plagued that reunion. On the other, I felt an overwhelming desire to help the very people who had once scorned me. My heart wrestled with the notion of revenge versus redemption. I could have easily allowed bitterness to take hold, letting the sting of past insults poison my every thought. But instead, I chose a different path, a path where my success would be used not to exact retribution, but to lift them from the depths of their financial despair. Without a hint of fanfare, I set my plans into motion. I began by quietly arranging meetings with financial advisors, legal experts, and even old contacts from the industry who owed me favors from years past. Every conversation, every handshake, was a step toward an audacious goal: to pay off every debt held by my wife's family. I moved meticulously, ensuring that no one in the family suspected my involvement. My actions were entirely clandestine. Every check, every transfer executed without any announcement. I wanted my work to speak for itself, to be a silent testament to my commitment and strength. The process was grueling and took me deep into a world of complex negotiations, late-night discussions and unanticipated hurdles. I discovered that many of the debts were intertwined with personal grudges, mismanaged trust funds, and even fraudulent schemes. Some creditors were notorious for their ruthless tactics, while others were willing to accept settlements if approached with the right combination of sincerity and leverage. I navigated these turbulent waters with caution, determined to avoid any spectacle that might expose my plans prematurely. There were nights when the weight of secrecy pressed down on me like a crushing shroud. I would sit alone in my study, surrounded by stacks of financial statements and legal documents, and question whether I was making the right choice. Every receipt, every signed document, was a silent reminder of the humiliation I had endured, and a promise that I would never let that shame define me again. I worked tirelessly, driven by an inner conviction that my success should be measured not by the wealth I accumulated, but by the lives I could change. And so, with each passing day, I inched closer to the moment when I would be able to present my ultimate act of quiet defiance. As the deadline for settling these debts approached, I found myself caught in a whirlwind of emotions. The long hours, the relentless pressure, and the constant fear of being discovered took their toll on my health and spirit. Yet, in the midst of that turmoil, there were fleeting moments of pure exhilaration. I recall one evening after finalizing a particularly challenging settlement with a notoriously vindictive creditor, I stepped out onto my balcony. The cool night air was crisp against my skin, and as I looked out over the city skyline, a profound sense of peace washed over me. I realized that in the struggle to redeem not just myself but an entire family, I had discovered a resilience I never knew existed. The day finally arrived when the last of the debts were cleared, a day that I had both anticipated and dreaded. I meticulously reviewed every account, every transaction, to ensure that no loose ends remained. I wanted everything to be perfect, not for my own glory, but so that the act of generosity would stand on its own, free from any taint of self-interest. When I was certain that every obligation had been met, I arranged for a series of discreet transfers to be made directly into the hands of those who needed it most. In the background, I worked with legal experts to ensure that the process was seamless and untraceable to me. Then, in a quiet, unassuming gesture, I paid a visit to my wife's family. I arrived unannounced at a family gathering, a reunion that was meant to be an ordinary celebration. As I walked into the room, I could sense a palpable change in the atmosphere. Conversations hushed, and all eyes fell upon me, as if they were expecting me to deliver some form of announcement. But I said nothing. I simply smiled gently, allowing the silence to speak volumes. Over the course of the evening, subtle changes began to ripple through the room. Old debts that had once cast long shadows over our interactions were now topics of quiet relief and astonishment. Relatives exchanged whispered thanks and incredulous glances, their voices soft and filled with a mixture of gratitude and shame. I watched as the seeds of transformation took root in real time. There was no grand declaration, no overt demonstration of triumph. Instead, the impact of my actions unfolded like a gentle revolution, a quiet, unspoken shift in the dynamics of our family. I observed how the people who had once sneered at my expense now carried a look of humbled gratitude, their eyes reflecting both relief and a dawning understanding that sometimes, the ones we dismiss may hold a strength we never dared to imagine. In the days and weeks that followed, I noticed subtle changes in my wife's family. The harsh words of the past, once so freely thrown around, had given way to a cautious empathy and a willingness to rebuild. I overheard conversations where old grudges were set aside, where people began to acknowledge their own shortcomings and the destructive nature of their pride. I was not the hero in anyone's eyes. I had made my choice to help quietly, without expectation of reward or recognition. Yet, as time passed, I saw that the act had sparked something far more enduring than a mere repayment of debts. It had sown the seeds of humility, forgiveness, and a collective desire to move forward with a newfound sense of unity. There were moments, too, when the past resurfaced unbidden. At family dinners and casual gatherings, someone would let slip a memory of that long-ago reunion, the day when I was called broke and felt so small and insignificant. In those moments, I would listen quietly, my heart no longer burning with the old anger but tempered by a gentle sadness. I realized that the scars of humiliation run deep, and that while my actions might begin to heal some wounds, the process of true reconciliation is slow and often painful. I understood that forgiveness, especially self-forgiveness, was as much a part of the journey as any financial triumph. In the silent solitude of my own reflections, I often questioned whether I had done enough, whether my quiet act of restitution would ever be enough to erase the bitterness of the past. But then, as I watched members of the family come together to support one another in new ways, to share their successes and rebuild trust. I knew that the ripple effect of my decision was already unfolding. The transformation was not instantaneous, but it was real, a testament to the idea that even in the darkest corners of shame, there can be light, if one only dares to nurture it. I remember one particularly emotional evening when I was alone with my wife. We sat together on our worn-out couch, the silence between us filled with unspoken thoughts. She looked at me with a softness in her eyes that I had not seen in years, as if she were trying to convey 1,000 words in a single glance. "I'm sorry," she whispered, her voice trembling with a mixture of regret and gratitude. "I never understood how hard you worked, how much you sacrificed, and how every bit of that was meant for our future. I was so blinded by pride and the need to appear perfect that I never saw the strength it took for you to keep us afloat." In that moment, the weight of all the past insults and misunderstandings seemed to lift, replaced by an overwhelming sense of shared vulnerability and hope. Our conversation stretched long into the night. We spoke of the wounds inflicted by careless words, of the silent battles fought in the dead of night, and of the possibility of forgiveness, even for those who had once mocked us. It was a cathartic release, a moment of truth that allowed us both to see that love, in its truest form, was not about pride or perfection but about the willingness to stand by one another even when the world seemed intent on tearing you apart. In her eyes, I saw the acknowledgement of a debt far greater than any financial obligation, the debt of trust, of respect, and of a love that had been tarnished by misunderstanding but could, with time, be restored. As I continued on my path, I made it a point to carry the lessons of that transformative period with me every day. I channeled the pain of past insults into a quiet determination to be a better person, not for the sake of anyone else's approval, but for my own sense of integrity. I became more involved in community service, volunteering at local charities and helping those who struggled with financial instability much like I once had. I understood, more deeply than ever, that wealth was not merely a number in a bank account, but the ability to lift others out of despair, to offer hope when all seemed lost. My actions, though still quiet and unheralded by the world at large, began to create ripples of change in the community. There were times when I would return to the scene of the old reunion in my mind, the laughter, the derision, the oppressive sense of inadequacy that had once defined me, and I would marvel at how far I had come. Every sleepless night, every sacrifice, had been a stepping stone toward a future where I could look back without shame. I recalled the moments of isolation in my apartment, where I sat in silence, feeling the weight of every sneer and dismissive comment. Those memories, though painful, had been the catalyst for a metamorphosis that now defined me, a transformation that was as much about internal growth as it was about external achievement. I often wonder if the people who once mocked me ever truly understood the impact of their words. In hushed conversations, I sometimes overhear references to that fateful reunion, as if it were a tale to be recounted with a mix of amusement and regret. But I have learned to accept that the past cannot be undone. Instead, I have chosen to focus on what lies ahead, the quiet victories, the moments of redemption, and the enduring power of compassion. My journey was not about proving them wrong, it was about proving to myself that I was capable of overcoming adversity and emerging stronger on the other side. In the midst of this whirlwind of change, I found solace in the simple pleasures of life. There were evenings when I would take long walks through the city, the cool night air refreshing my mind, and the twinkling lights of skyscrapers a reminder of the endless possibilities that lay ahead. I discovered that even in solitude, there could be moments of profound beauty, a child's laughter echoing in a park, the gentle murmur of a stream, or the silent comfort of a friend's embrace. These small moments, though seemingly insignificant in isolation, gradually wove themselves into a tapestry of resilience and hope that sustained me through the darkest of times. Time, as it does, began to blur the sharp edges of that painful past. The ridicule of the reunion, once a source of relentless torment, slowly faded into a distant echo, a reminder of a time when I was forced to confront my own limitations and, in doing so, discover a strength I had never known. I carried those lessons with me, not as a badge of shame, but as a quiet emblem of perseverance. Every step I took, every decision I made, was infused with the wisdom gained from those early days of humiliation and hardship. Now, as I sit here in the quiet of my own living room, surrounded by the tangible fruits of my labor, a modest but steadily growing portfolio, a sense of inner peace that had once eluded me, I feel an overwhelming gratitude for the journey that has brought me here. I no longer see the label broke as a mark of failure. Instead, I recognize it as a turning point, a moment that catalyzed a transformation that reshaped not only my finances but the very fabric of my being. There are still times when I catch myself reflecting on that old wound, a single cruel word that once threatened to define my existence. In those moments, I remind myself of the quiet victories, the subtle yet powerful ways in which I had rewritten my story. I remember the countless hours spent in solitude, the nights when the silence of my apartment was broken only by the steady ticking of the clock as I resolved to rise above the insults and build a life of dignity and self-respect. And I recall the day when, in a moment of unexpected grace, I was able to look my wife in the eye and see not only the remorse for her past actions but also the shared determination to forge a better future together. Our lives have since taken on a new rhythm, a rhythm marked not by the clamor of public humiliation, but by the quiet, steady pulse of hope and mutual understanding. My wife and I now share a deeper bond, one that is forged in the crucible of shared struggles and triumphs. We have learned to appreciate each other's strengths and to forgive each other's shortcomings, recognizing that true partnership is about growing together, even when the journey is fraught with obstacles. In the end, I realize that the true measure of success is not in the number of debts paid off or the accolades received, but in the quiet resilience that emerges from the depths of adversity. I discovered that the power to transform lies not in the grand gestures or public declarations, but in the silent, steadfast commitment to better oneself and to uplift those around you. The family that once ridiculed me has, over time, come to understand that my worth was never defined by a bank balance or by the shallow opinions of others, but by the unwavering strength of my character. And so, as the years roll by and the painful memories of that reunion fade into the background of a life built on quiet determination, I remain committed to the ideals that guided me through those dark times. I continue to invest not just in my own future, but in the well-being of those around me, believing that even the smallest act of kindness can have a profound impact on someone's life. In the silent exchange of glances at family gatherings, in the soft, grateful words of those whose burdens I have helped lift, I find validation for the choices I made, a validation that comes not from the praise of others, but from the quiet knowledge that I chose to rise above humiliation and transform it into something meaningful. Every day as I reflect on my journey, I am reminded that life is a tapestry woven with threads of both pain and joy. The mocking words of the past have become part of that tapestry, a reminder of where I started and how far I have come. And though the scars of that day at the reunion may never completely fade, they now serve as a testament to the enduring power of resilience, forgiveness, and the unspoken strength that lies within us all. In the gentle light of the morning, as I sip my coffee and watch the world awaken around me, I feel a profound sense of gratitude. I am grateful for the challenges that forced me to grow, for the insults that spurred me to action, and for the quiet victories that continue to shape my life. I have learned that true wealth is not measured in dollars and cents, but in the strength of one's spirit and the depth of one's compassion. And as I move forward, I do so with a quiet confidence, knowing that every challenge is an opportunity to become better, to rise higher, and to help others along the way. This is my story, a journey from the painful echo of a single word to a life defined by resilience, growth, and the silent power of compassion. It is a reminder that even in the face of humiliation, there lies the potential for transformation, that every low moment can serve as the foundation for a future built on strength, determination, and an unwavering commitment to making a difference. And though I may never forget the sting of being called broke at that family reunion, I now wear that memory as a badge of honor, a reminder that I once faced darkness and emerged quietly and resolutely into the light. As I continue on this path, I remain ever mindful of the lessons learned along the way. I strive to live each day with a sense of purpose, to honor the sacrifices of my past by building a future where kindness and strength go hand in hand. And in the quiet moments of reflection, I find solace in knowing that every act of generosity, every debt repaid in silence, has contributed to a legacy far greater than any public accolade could ever convey. The journey is far from over, and I know that there will be more challenges ahead. Yet, with each new dawn, I am reminded that the power to overcome adversity lies within me. I choose to embrace that power, to let it guide me through the storms of life, and to continue investing in a future where no one's worth is measured by a number, but by the strength of their character and the depth of their heart. In the quiet recesses of my mind, I still hear that fateful laugh from that long-ago reunion. It no longer fills me with anger or shame, but with a bittersweet reminder of the resilience that was born from that moment. It is a reminder that even the harshest of insults can ignite a fire that, when nurtured with determination and compassion, transforms pain into purpose and humiliation into hope. And so, I move forward, quietly, resolutely, and with a heart full of gratitude for every lesson learned along the way. I have paid off not only the debts of a family that once mocked me, but I have also repaid the debts of my own self-doubt with unwavering strength and quiet defiance. My life, once marred by the echoes of scorn, is now a testament to the power of perseverance, and a living example of the truth that no matter how low one may fall, there is always the potential to rise again, stronger and more determined than ever before. As the sun sets on another day, painting the sky with hues of gold and purple, I sit in quiet contemplation, a gentle smile playing upon my lips. I know that the road ahead will be filled with both triumphs and challenges, but I also know that I am no longer defined by the judgments of others. I am defined by my choices, by the quiet acts of kindness and strength that have shaped my journey, and by the knowledge that every setback was a stepping stone toward a future filled with hope, compassion, and a deep, abiding sense of self-worth. I have learned that true wealth is measured not in material riches, but in the depth of one's character, the strength of one's relationships, and the quiet dignity with which one faces life's challenges. And as I continue to build my life, I remain ever mindful of the past, not as a source of shame, but as a wellspring of wisdom that fuels my determination to live fully, to give generously, and to rise above the pettiness of judgment with grace and quiet courage. This journey, marked by the silent repaying of debts and the quiet transformation of a life once defined by humiliation, is a testament to the enduring power of hope and resilience. And while the echoes of that painful reunion may still reverberate in my memory, they no longer hold me captive. Instead, they serve as a constant reminder that even in our darkest moments, there lies the potential for profound transformation, a potential that, when nurtured with determination and compassion, can turn even the deepest wounds into the foundation of a brighter, more resilient future. And so, I continue my journey, with every step guided by the lessons of the past and every heartbeat a quiet celebration of the strength that lies within. I know that I have the power to shape my own destiny, to repay the debts of my past with acts of kindness and strength, and to transform every moment of humiliation into a stepping stone toward a future defined not by the judgment of others, but by the quiet, unwavering determination to rise, to give, and to love without reservation. This is not just my story, it is a testament to the human spirit, a quiet declaration that no insult, no matter how biting, can ever diminish the potential for growth and redemption. And as I gaze into the horizon, I carry with me the quiet confidence of a man who has not only survived but thrived, transforming the pain of the past into the hope of a future where every debt, every slight, is repaid with the silent strength of love, perseverance, and the unwavering belief that we are all capable of rising above our circumstances to create a life of dignity, purpose, and quiet triumph. Every day, I awaken with a renewed sense of purpose, a purpose forged in the fires of past humiliation, tempered by the challenges of life, and emboldened by the silent victories that have paved the way for a future filled with hope. I have learned that even the harshest words, spoken in moments of cruelty, cannot define who we are. It is our actions, our quiet resilience, and our willingness to rise above adversity that truly shape our destiny. And so, with a heart full of gratitude and a spirit unbroken by the weight of judgment, I continue to walk this path, a path illuminated by the quiet light of hope, resilience, and the unyielding power of a man determined to forge his own destiny, one silent, transformative act at a time.